All right. So sounds like we're looking at some serialization stuff today. Um, cool. Before we jump in, I'd like to hear from y'all where you are at with it. If you've looked at it much, we've looked at it just a tiny little bit already. But like where you're at, what questions you have, I guess, and yeah, all that. Go jump in. No questions. Great. Easy. We're done. Um, so serialization is actually like really it's not super deep in Flask here. So are there any conceptual things, I guess, uh, that are blocking you and like the serialized rules or anything like that?
I could just throw out like how I'm thinking about what serialization is.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go for that.
So the way I'm thinking about it is like when you're running a serialization or using serializer mixin or doing a two dict or something like that,
Hmm.
it's just taking all of that data and basically translating it in a way where JSON or whatever server you're using can display it or filter through that in an organized way.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
So yeah, go for it. Go for it.
oh no, but yeah, that's pretty much just how conceptually how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like the main parts. So the main thing you're gonna do is in your model, when you're saying your class, whatever your model name is, and then you're inheriting from DB model. DB model is the thing that gives the model all the things that needs to be a model and talk to the database. And then you can add more things like serializer mixin. So what serializer mixin does, it is it is, well, I want to talk about inheritance, maybe not. But basically, when you inherit from a class, uh, you're basically saying, hey, this class is basically the same as this class plus whatever I add to it or change in it. A mix-in is kind of something that comes sideways along with an inheritance. Basically, you inherit all your stuff from your parent class, and then your mix-in is giving you
What?
extra things on top of that.
Just mute it?
Is there a question? Yeah, cool. A mix-in is yeah, there we go. Cool. Um, so you can have multiple mix-ins. Serializer mix-ins is really the only one we're going to be looking at here. Um, other like Rails relies on mix-ins a little bit more than we do here. There's a bunch of things you can add in. So serializer mix-in, basically that's just adding extra functionality to a class, whatever it inherits from. And in our case, that is giving us a little bit of extra stuff. We are able to uh, set some, the two main things we are looking at is let's just set some serialization rules on top of the basic stuff. And the to-dict is the thing that we're going to be using most of the time, all the time, I think, to turn the class from the class object into the JSON, or to the dict, the Python object that we can then JSONify. So let me go backwards, I guess. So the to-dict function, you already used it. We used it last time I talked to y'all. Basically, what it does is so the model class, our book or newspaper or user shopping cart, whatever, uh, that's the ORM class that talks to the database. So that's where we make new ones. We play with the session, add stuff, delete stuff, and all that. So that's that class. That is a Python class that has a lot of functionality built into it, and I think we saw at the very end of last time, if you try to turn that into JSON, JSON file is just like I don't know what that is. Give me something to work with. And so that's what the toDict is doing. The toDict is saying that's a function that's added onto that model class and says, I'm going to look at specifically this kind of SQLAlchemy model class, and I know what the things are that you actually need. You don't need all the stuff that hooks into the SQL or the you don't need all the ORM stuff when you're serializing it. When you want to send it as data, you only need basically the fields, the columns in the database, and the values there. So the toDict says, I'm going to take that model, I'm going to turn it into a plain old Python object, a dict object in JavaScript, the same thing. And so once you do that, it is just a plain old dict. It's just keys and values, and that's it, which is great because that's all we want. We just want to send back JSON. So we need to be able to JSONify a Python thing, which is going to be our dict. So that changes the Python version, the Python dict object into a string, which is JSON that shows that object. So that's what toDict does for us. Again, we could write that manually if we really wanted to. I don't really want to. So toDict is the way we're going to do it. We can, there's some options you can do toDict. You can pass in rules to dict as you're doing it. But in general, you're going to want to do the same kind of things over and over to get into it. And so that's when we're going to use those serializer rules. And we use that in the definition of the model class. So that's the part people get stuck up on the most, I think, because it feels like it's kind of backwards. When we're serializing it, basically it is going through all the stuff. So if there are, say we have an author object and it has a associated, there's a relationship to all the books, has many. So the author has many book objects in it. When we serialize, it's going to serialize all of that, which might not be what we want. If we want to get like just a list of authors, having a list of books for each author might be a huge pain. So we want some way to tell it to, hey, don't do all that stuff. And that's especially useful if it's a recursive, or is it recursive? I guess if it's a circular relationship, we want to be able to cut stuff out. And that's where the serialize rules come in. And that's where we would say in the, so we have, class author, inherits from DB model, SerializerMixin, table name, and then we say serialize rules, and that's just a method that's added to the class by SerializerMixin. Serialize rules, and then we give it a list of a tuple. Actually, we give it a tuple of strings, and those strings tell us what to remove from it. And so most of them are going to just have minus and then table names or column names, I guess. So if we have, we want to exclude the authors from our books, we're going to have serialize rules. It's going to be, we're going to have a tuple, so it's going to be in parentheses, and it's going to be books, I guess, or author.books minus author.books. Is that right? Something along those lines. I have to look at these X in practice. But basically, we're saying what things to not put in there. And I think that really catches people up, because I think sometimes we're thinking that those rules are the things we want to exclude, and really almost all the time we're using them, those are things that we want to exclude. So that's what the serializer rules are. Otherwise, if you don't give them the serialize rules, they'll just serialize everything. And so we can put those in the serialize rules in the model class definition. Or if we want a one-off, if we want to display one a certain way, we can put that in the rules argument to dict. And that is it. that is that is all there is to serialization that we're going to be using. Um, that's the overall explanation. Any conceptual stuff we want to talk about there? Anything you don't understand or would like to talk more about there? Don't conceptually understand serialization in which infinite loop it's not spread. So why do we need it? Great. So like in the author books example, uh, if we list out so we serialize the author object. The author has many books. So the object is going to have, in the main thing, it's going to have, name, birthday, uh, personal information about the author itself, themselves, I guess. And then we're going to say, oh, it has many books. So it's going to have a books key, and that's going to have a list with all of the books in it. Probably on our model, we have each book knowing what the author is. So each book in that list is going to list the author, which is going to be the thing at the top level. So it's going to list that. And then in there is going to list all the books for that author. And then each of those books is going to have that author object in it. So that's never going to end. So what we want to do is if we want the author to not be shown in the list of books, that's why we're going to say the serialized rules is minus books.author in the author class. So when we list out the books belonging to the author, each one of those books is not going to include the author that wrote it. And so that's why we need it there. Does that point in the right direction of what you're asking? Yeah. So yeah, let me just type it out, I guess, instead of building a whole database. Let me just open up code and I'll see if we can see a visual example here. Of course, let me as well. Let's do the sketch file. Share screen. Great, great, great. Cool. So let's go with the author situation here. So we have let me go. Sorry. JSON in chat. We don't need that. So size here. Nope, not that one. This one here. Cool. So when we serialize an author object, sort of conceptually, our author object is going to have so in our class, and this is not going to be perfect Python. This is kind of pseudocode. Class author is going to have. We're going to have, of course, it's JSON. We're going to have a name that's a string. We're going to have email that's a string. We're going to have say, age is a number. That's bad. Don't do that in your actual data, because then you'll have to update it every year. And then we're going to say, like has many books. And this is not any syntax that you're ever going to use. This is just kind of relationship diagramming kind of stuff. So, and then our books, class book has title, it's a string, and publication date as a string, date time, whatever. It's going to have an author. That's be an author object. So this is going to look like it's going to be a might represent that as like books as a array of or list of. So that's kind of the setup that we have for those. goes. So we have a bunch of authors with some information, and this is not any language at all. I'm just gonna put this here so we have that. So an author has many books that they've written. They have some information, and when we serialize it, our data for it is going to look like this. An author is going to be, have a name. Put this down here so I can. Great. An author is going to, and JSON always requires you to have that. So our name is Mark Twain. Oh, do I know any Mark Twain books? We'll find out. Email is sam@com. Age is business number. And so then it's going to have a, I'm just going to give a number here because I said it was a number. It's 44. Young for stage. And so then he's going to have a list of books like this. And this is going to be a list of his books. Let's look at what a book object is going to look like. A book object is going to have a title. And title, oh yeah, he wrote Huckleberry Finn. What's the shorter one? Huckleberry Finn is great. Best time to pick the longest titles. Publication and the longest field names. Publication date is going to be like 1920, 1915. I don't remember. If it wants to look that up, put it in chat. And then we're going to have an author. And author is going to be, the Mark Twain object here. So, and these are going to be, the King Arthur's. Oh, why did you make your book title so long, Mark? Arthur's Court object, and so on. 1885. Yeah, kind of close. 1885. Great, and so on. So each of these books. So if I want to put the Huckleberry Finn book object in here, say we only care about that one book, that's going to look like this. Great. That's no problem. So the author, oh, okay. So we need to put the author object in here. So that's going to look like that. Oh no. So books are Huckleberry Finn, and so on. And so we can see this is going to be a big problem. So this is going to keep putting things inside things, inside things, inside things. So when we write the author object, this is going to be more Python-y. So we a class author inherits from DB model serializer. Am I lying about actually the mixin being a mixin? I think somewhere in the curriculum it says that it inherits from SerializerMixin, and I don't think that is technically true. I would have to look at the documentation, but in practice, basically, this is Python's way of cheating multiple inheritance. Or does Python actually have multiple inheritance? I don't remember. I know Perl does. Too many languages to remember. So we're going to have that. We're going to set up all our tables, our columns here, our DB columns. So author name equals DB column, and so on. And then we're going to do our serialize rules. And so what does this look like? So to prevent this problem from happening, we want to uh, prevent this infinite loop from happening. So what we want to do is say, where do we want to stop? Seems like not having the author in the books. So we're just going to have this. Because if we put the author in, we're going to include this in that, and then we're going to have to include that in that again, and so on and so on and so on down the line. So we want to say, cool, we want to exclude some stuff. Serialize rules takes a tuple, which means that if we only have one, it's going to need a comma because Python. And we're going to say, what do we want to exclude? Okay, we want to exclude minus, and we want to look at in the author, we want to exclude the, or no, not true, not true. In the books, we want to exclude the author. Cool, and that's that. So this is saying when we create this, make sure that in here we're not doing author is books author books and so on. Oh, it's too bad down there. So we want to keep that terrible shape from happening. We want to say we're going to stop that nonsense right here, and when we put the books in the serialized author, we are going to make sure that each one of those books does not have an author to prevent that. Assuming, because we assume that every single book that is in the list of Mark Twain's books is authored by Mark Twain. Some authors that might not be the case, I suppose, but in our system, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, that's what I have to say there. So, does this clear it up at all, or does it just make it more complicated? Or is there anything else in here that you want to kind of poke at? If anyone is talking, you're muted. Cool. That's really all there is about to say about Serializer. Um, I think that's the last of it. We went over the validation stuff yesterday. Um, yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about it. So if you have more questions, now is the time. Stop sharing that. Cool. That's that. Question. What's the question? And if someone is talking, I can't hear you. Everyone is muted. Cool. Cool. Yeah, for sure. Let's go back to our let's go back to our desktop here. Great. So yeah, do you have an example in mind that you'd like to do?
So what kind of relationships do we need between the two? Like a one-to-many, a many-to-many for all this to be kind of
Yeah, so basically, an author has many books here, and a book has an author. So it's a one-to-many in this case. But pretty much anytime, it doesn't really depend on the, like, does it? Am I lying? Yeah, I guess pretty much any X to many thing is going to have this because the, or even maybe some one-to-one relationships are going to have this, because if we had like, oh, if we broke it out, I don't want to talk about database table normalization right now, but if we have like two things, if we have, I'm trying to think of an example, that would be it. I have an employee that works at a company. Like that company's gonna have many employees. I have a what's something that's kind of one-to-one that wouldn't be in the same table.
I always have a hard time like coming up with
Yeah, maybe it's a so we have our domain is like stock car racing or something, and we have a driver and we have the car. The car has one driver, driver has one car.
Right.
You can't see me gesturing on the video, but I am gesturing. Let me gesture with words instead. So we have a driver. Driver has one car. Car has one driver. So let me just boop, that. So we have a driver with a car and a car with a driver. So the driver object is going to look like, you know, name, Doug, age, he's a young guy, and car is going to be, you know, the car object. And so we have a car. Car is going to have a, you know, make, race car, model, Honda, why not? And a driver. And so this is going to be our driver object. In this case, it's going to be the Doug driver object. That's going to be our car. We'll give it a name. Name is Betty. Great. It's our Betty car object. Okay. So Doug is our driver. Betty is our car. They belong to each other. And so when we serialize it, it's going to look kind of like this, right? But these are going to be in quotes, of course. JSON, quotes, commas, make it all nice. Boom, boom, boom. Fantastic. So then these, when we serialize it, so if we serialize the driver is going to look like this. And you know, we probably want it to stop there, but if we don't add that serialization rule, we're gonna run into this situation. Car is going to be what? That the car is going to be with a driver, and the driver is going to be the car, and the car is going to be, and so on and so on.
And that's why we set up the rule.
Yeah. So in this case, we would want to say in the serialized rules for the, you know, for the driver, you know, driver is going to have serialized rules. Those rules are going to be, and it has to have a comment at the end. Rules going to be you know, car, driver. We want to take that away. And then similarly in the car class, we're going to have serialized rules. Serialized rules equals minus driver car. So we're saying in the driver class, when we display the car minus the driver, in the car class, when we're displaying that, yeah, when we display the driver, we don't want to display the car because otherwise this is going to go on forever. Does that clear it up just a little bit?
No, that clears up a lot. Basically, it's like they have something to do with each other. Then you're not
exactly. Yeah, because if they, and you know, sometimes it's tricky because you might have like three models in a circle that you have to kind of
Right.
decide
You're
what
juggling at that point.
yeah what parts of the data do you want to show and what parts do you need to stop. And it could be like, oh, maybe it's not just for this. Maybe the driver has a private email address and we don't want his fans to talk to him or whatever. When we serialize it, or oh, maybe drivers have a password for some reason. And so we might want to say, hey, we want to not show the password for a driver because we don't want to include that information when we serialize it and send it off. So it's
And then-
not just for these circular things, it's to exclude anything that we want to exclude when we serialize it.
Would you have to put a comment or a comma at the end after?
Yeah, not for so Python tuples are kind of like lists, but they're not for a single thing. We need to have a comma to let it know that it's a tuple and not just stuff in parentheses. Python. Yeah, but if there's more than one, you don't have to have a comma at the end. In fact,
Okay, cool.
you can't. Yeah.
So for a driver, okay, we're gonna have car, but we're not gonna have driver, or is it the other way around?
So in the driver, we are going to say don't show the driver property of the car of the driver.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is,
Okay.
I feel like this is a little bit misleading because in our brain, it's kind of like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
That's how I
in the
see it.
driver, don't show the car's driver. In the driver, don't show the driver's password. But because it's in the class already, it assumes this part.
Uh-huh.
Set implicitly. So I think it's really confusing, and every single student that I've taught agrees.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So that's how it goes.
Hey Mark,
Yeah.
quick question. So with the serialized rules, underscore rules, or the S_R, like, are those two different ways to like let it know?
Oh, this was just an
serialized?
abbreviation. I just didn't want to
Oh.
type the whole thing.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
So that's the actual like command, I guess, or
Yeah, that was just me not wanting to type.
okay, cool.
Cool. What other questions do we have? Right.
Hold on.
So, Mark, so just trying to like conceptually understand it better. Do you have to serialize every like foreign key between objects to prevent that loop, or how can I like?
Only if the foreign object refers back to the class that has it. So if you have and I think in our cases it is because of the way it's set up, I think it's going to be everyone. I can't think of a case in SQLAlchemy where you're going to have like where your book class isn't going to refer back to the author. So I think in practice it's going to be that way. I don't think there's a case where you won't like that, which makes it easier. Like you could do it without knowing what it does. You can just pattern match and be like, oh, it looks like every time I have one of these, I have to put in a rule for it. But understanding it definitely helps you. Well, like when you forget the comma or when you put the wrong name in, it definitely helps you fix it when you know what's going on. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's an example where it wouldn't be, but I can't off the top of my head. There might be in the future.
If we take a look at your code again, I just want to.
Yeah. And this is pseudocode, so don't take it for what it is. Yeah, and so this is going to be, let me type it out a little bit more. So it's like class driver. This is going to inherit from the model. I think that's how we do it. Let's say class code.
We're all here. We're all
Um, so is this similar to like the dot underscore in Python?
Say that again.
Is this similar to like the yeah, that dot underscore? Yeah.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. Did you say dot underscore?
Yeah, so how do we put this into human language? Yeah, it basically the dot underscore before whatever you call it was going to be a recursion verb.
Hmm.
And it's like a similar concept, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. Yeah.
But it's the same verb, like the same like
Yeah, it's a dot underscore. I see. I know what you're saying. Dot underscore is just a convention, I think, for because it doesn't really have if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, because it doesn't really have real private variables because it's not a real object-oriented language. T. But yeah, that's just a convention that people use to pretend that it's a private variable. Yeah, that's different. Cool.
So if you had
Yeah.
like a join table,
Mhm.
How would you exclude both the driver and the car from the join table? Or
So if you had so we've had many drivers that had many cars. What
correct.
you're talking about?
Yeah.
And we had
Or like
class.
races or something.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say race. Uh, cool. Cool. So and so you're saying we would have a class driver races like that. So you know what? How does Python handle that, or how does SQLAlchemy handle that? I think because if there's not a are we doing explicit? So let me get a more clear for my brain. Let's do doctors and patients. And these are going to be appointments, right? So a doctor is going to have many patients through appointments. A patient is going to have many doctors through appointments. Doctor's going to have many appointments. Patient's going to have many appointments. So we want to, yeah, that's a great question. So if we have, yeah, cool. So what this is actually really good. So if we look at the things we want to exclude, so the doctor is going to have we have Bob is our doctor, and Bob is a doctor and just has a name. That's all. So when we want to look at Bob's patients, we're going to say Bob patients, just like that. And this is going to give us a list of all the patients, A, B, C, D. Should be personal. But we can also look at Bob's appointments. And those are going to be appointment models that have both the doctor and patient. So in that case, and well, our patients are going to be Tammy is going to be a patient. So she's also going to have appointments. That's going to be a different but overlapping list there. And Tammy is also going to have a list of doctors because she might have dentist appointments and dermatology, whatever. So these are all separate instances that you'd want to take care of, because if we have a list of appointments, so the simple case is the patients and doctors. So we don't want to have our patients. We don't want to have the doctor loop back, and we don't want to have the doctors. So in our list of patients, we don't need to know the doctor because all of my patients are going to have me as a doctor.
Right.
And likewise, if I'm a patient, I don't want to list those in the doctors because all of my doctors are going to have me as a patient. But we also don't want our appointments to necessarily show all of, so for doctor, appointments, doctor, and for patient. Because again, all of my appointments, I know they're my appointments. So
Those are the two
I don't
things
use-
you really don't want showing.
yeah,
Just kind of
exactly.
flip-flop on it.
Yeah, anything. And so pretty much for the loop stopping stuff, all of these are going to have the class as the second part. So if I'm a patient, I don't want to see my doctor's patients, and I don't want to see my appointments patients because I know they're me.
Right.
And like both like conceptually, oh, I know all of the patient of all my appointments is going to be me, so I don't need to see that. And then practically, because if I do that, I'm going to have an infinite loop. So both conceptually and practically, those are useful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, when you have, see, I love how like more complex it is with just one more.
Yeah, and it's going to
Class.
be, as you add more things, it's just going to build and build and build. So
Right.
that's why I like designing your database diagrams is an important skill when you get past just a couple tables.
And then so for class appointments, how would we kind of exclude for all of the above?
Yeah, so that there. So let's do this. Equals. So I am an appointment. Here's our cleaning is going to be with our dentist. That's going to be a new appointment. Bob is a dentist, I guess. Bob and Tammy. So our cleaning is going to have a doctor, and cleaning is going to have a patient. Bob. So when we look at the doctor for our cleaning, what do we need to exclude for that?
Look at our doctor for our. What's up? So we are. Oh, yeah. Oh no, that just.
Say that again.
Oh, we were just hung up on
Yeah. So if I'm showing the doctor, what do I already know about my doctor from the appointments?
So you are the doctor, correct?
So in the if we're looking at the appointment and we want to display the doctor for the appointment, what do we already know about that doctor?
Well, yeah, I would say it's patients.
But we don't know anything about the patient necessarily from the appointments, right?
Okay.
But what do we know for sure that
Oh, we know the doctor's appointments. Right?
Yeah, we know the doctor's appointments. And we know that that list of appointments is going to include us. And so if we don't exclude the appointments, we're going to get our infinite loop. And the same thing with our patient. If we're looking at the patient associated with the appointment, we know for 100% sure that the list of appointments for the patient includes us. So we don't really need that. And in fact, if we do include it, it will give us a loop.
Okay, so that's that makes a lot of sense. So people would draw it out, see the actual connections, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking it makes a lot of sense. It's basically just the relationships that each class has.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is pretty much going to be the pattern that you're going to see. So it's, even if you don't fully grasp it, you can kind of be like, oh, like whatever whatever things that whatever properties that I have that includes what I am, exclude those.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Any more questions about this? Cool. Sweet. That's almost at the hour. I feel good about that. Last call for questions about serialization. Just my teeth. Cool. Awesome. I think we're good. Great. I'll post this video in the usual places. I went to look at my videos yesterday just to make sure everything was cool, and it looked like the code was blurry, like the resolution wasn't great. I don't know if it just hadn't finished processing or not, but hopefully it's good enough to use. Hopefully it doesn't go back for the last 2 or 3 years. So yeah, if you have questions, holler. I'll post the video in the channel when it goes up. And yeah, other than that, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you. Well, on Monday we'll do a like full put everything together review.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See y'all later on.